Alright, so the point in this video... Oh crap, I've got my mic. So as I was saying, the whole point in this video was for me to try and figure out what were going to be the best settings for shooting in low light and at night with the Osmo Action 5 Pro. And I was on my way to London to meet my brother, and it was probably about 3 PM or 4 PM, so the light levels were dropping. It's still light, but the light levels were dropping. So by the time I get to London, it's pretty much on the way to being dark. Now, one of the things that I also wanted to try, which you will see, is switching between D-Log-M and the normal colour profile to see if there's much of a change in terms of the video quality. So there's going to be a couple of side-by-side comparisons there as well. Looking at these two clips, I would say that the D-Log-M footage looks a little bit better. It just kind of looks a little bit cleaner. The normal colour profile, it's got a bit of a grainy look to it. The D-Log-M footage looks a little bit softer, but it just looks a bit smoother and a little bit cleaner, I think. So with that in mind, I kind of wish that I'd shot the rest of the footage that evening in D-Log-M, but I wasn't to know because I didn't edit the footage on the go. I would only know when I got back to my computer and then started editing the footage. But I did still get a few other clips in D-Log-M just because I still wanted to do that comparison. But for the rest of the evening after that, I think I just shot mainly in the normal colour profile. So moving forward, and this is something that I've mentioned in previous videos about the Osmo Action 5 Pro, is that in general, just on a bright sunny day, I feel like D-Log-M is the best way to go because you're going to get the best quality footage. I just didn't realise it would also apply to shooting in low light and at night. Because normally, the normal colour profile on most action cameras is going to do a really great job and outperform the log footage. So, as I mentioned earlier, I was on my way to meet my brother, and I come off the tube and I go up the escalator, walk a little bit down the street, and then I hear this really loud, kind of weird noise. I was literally just walking past and saw this. What is this? I look over to my left and I see a crowd of people standing in what kind of looks like a shop, but it's kind of open as well. And then I see this flash of light, and then there are loads of jellyfish just kind of floating around. So I hung around for a little bit, and this installation, or what could you call it, this immersive experience, it was so trippy, but it was really cool to look at and quite calming. And it was just on loop, so it was just playing over and over and over again, and I stayed there for a little bit just watching it because it was quite calming just being in that space and just watching it and hearing the audio as well. It was interesting, but not what I expected to find when I came off the tube. So when I was standing watching it as well, I switched between D-Log-M and the normal colour profile just so that I could see in a really dark space with artificial lights and screens going on, whether one would be better than the other. Well, that was wild. Forsaken, directed by Roland Lane. That looks pretty cool.
Yes, that's right.
Up until this point, I had been shooting in auto exposure with my EV meter set to -0.7, and by this point I had switched over to manual so that I could set my shutter speed to be 1/100th of a second and still keeping my EV meter at -0.7. It's really difficult on this little screen to see how the footage is doing in terms of the stabilisation. I've got rock steady on, and I'm hoping that, well, A, there's enough light. Well, as I'm walking past a shop at the moment, there probably is enough light for the footage to look decent.
normal colour profile, and yeah, hopefully you can see me all right. I also need to make sure that I'm going in the right place. Yeah. Am I going up here? Over there. Looking at this footage as I'm walking, it still has jitters, and I put my shutter speed to 1/100th of a second so that I could kind of counter that, because anything lower than that it will definitely have jitters, but you can still kind of see them. They're not horrendous. I don't think it would put me off, and I think if I went up to 1/200th of a second that would be way too dark. So I think 1/100th is the shutter speed to go for. With my current settings, one of the things that I'm continuously looking at, because I've got everything set to manual, is what my EV meter's reading. And ideally I want it to be minus 0.3, even if it is night, because otherwise lights get blown out. At the moment it's reading minus 1.3, so it is too dark. And my ISO is set to 100 to 128,000. No, 12,800. 120. 12,800. Now it's reading minus 0.7. So I think that is the point when having an additional light source or having something like a gimbal is going to make all the difference, because yeah, it's pretty dark at the moment. I would say for me that the biggest issue with shooting at night with an action camera is the jittery footage, and second is the low quality footage. But if all you had was an action camera and you were trying to get the best out of it that you could, no matter what lighting conditions you were shooting in, I would go with my shutter speed being 1/100th of a second to bring those jitters down. But if the footage just was not bright enough, then the only other thing is to bring the shutter speed down more, but at that point then the jitters are just going to go crazy. So that is when a gimbal would be the most preferable option, and that is what I would go for. Obviously people are going to be saying, well, you could just get the Pocket 3. You could, but there are some people out there that just don't have enough money to get an action camera and the Pocket 3, and they want to just get the best out of the action camera that they have. So buying a gimbal is going to be cheaper than buying the Pocket 3, for example, and that is just an option for those people. Just realised I got to where I needed to get to. So to round it up, I would say D-Log M and then colour correct and colour grade the footage. Shooting in auto white balance, because I was going to so many different places, or at least I was outdoors and there was so many lights, and just moving between indoors and outdoors, having it on auto white balance did a really good job. And then I kept my sharpness and my noise reduction. So my sharpness was at -2 and my noise reduction is at -1. So it's the same settings that I use during the day. And what else is there? I think that's it. They were the main settings, and I think that, like I said, if I was going to use my Action 5 at night time, they would be the settings that I would use.